Jett Luchanko's OHL season with the Guelph Storm is done. But what does that mean? Where does he go from here? Obviously, the Storm didn't make the playoffs. They finished towards the bottom of the Western Conference. But now that he has an opportunity and obviously signed with the Flyers, and there's been rumors and reports of what's happening and where does he go from here. But let's just break it all down about the Flyers, one of the Flyers' top prospects. But before we do that, I would just like to remind you to subscribe, like this video, tell your friends, all that good stuff, because it helps us out. There's no big faceless entity managing BSH. There's no media company, this venture capitalist company kind of that bought us and we're running it. It's all the people that you see and read on the website and on the YouTube that you're supporting. So hit that subscribe button and get us to 1,000 followers before the end of the season. And before we talk about Jett, where he's playing, let's break down his season. Now, his raw numbers might not be all that impressive or all that exciting and tantalizing. Over the season, he scored 21 goals and 56 points in 45 games. And while you expect from a draft plus one OHL player to maybe hit the 100 mark, especially for a first rounder, Jett was just surrounded by a severe lack of talent. You would see him just try for these scoring chances, play in all 200 feet of the ice and more, if that's possible. And you just motor around and try to be the sole creator for this team. And unfortunately, he was just not able to do that. Of course, you'll be able to see a little bit more in our Let's Watch Jett Luchanko Do Cool Stuff video that will be linked in the description below. But overall, Luchanko had the season where if you just look at this point total, you'd be kind of underwhelmed. But overall, with context matters and kind of him starting the year with the Flyers, obviously playing 4 games, staying a little bit more beyond 4 games, having his World Juniors, kind of being back and forth between multiple teams and not really be able to settle in with Guelph, and especially that it was already a bad team to begin with, and further depleted their roster at the trade deadline in the OHL. That there's all that context that surrounds that. Having above a point per game and increasing his goal scoring by so much is really an improvement. It's showing development, and still just 18 years old at the end of the season is really a really good sign for things to come. Luchanko really has 2 options to play for the rest of the year. Obviously, there's with the Flyers, he could come up to the NHL and take back his spot, and then there's go down to the AHL with the Phantoms and be on that team for the playoff push. Now, let's hypothetically say that he is brought back into the lineup for the Flyers in the NHL. The Flyers have 10 games remaining, and with Luchanko having played already 4, and if he's around this team, we would probably expect him to get his season total above that 10 game mark, which means that he would have 1 year of his entry level contract burned. And I can't really see that happening, but let's just continue on. Hypothetically, if he was with the Flyers, there's a way around to do this. It would set the Flyers in this position to kind of lock them in with Luchanko, because with 4 allotted call-out spots, the Flyers already used 3 on Emil Andre, Ole Lexell, and Rodrigo Abels right after the March 7th trade deadline. With just 1 more remaining, if Luchanko was to be recalled, we believe that it would count as that final one. We've seen past examples of Pavel Zacha and Sam Bennett when he's with the Flames, Zacha with the Devils, that the term that they used was called up or recalled for players that were in the OHL and they were playing NHL regular season games with their team towards the end of the season. Now, there is a way around it, of course. There's a way that teams can call up players. It'd be on an emergency basis. Teams can only use that if they don't have 12 forwards, 6 healthy defensemen, and 2 healthy goalies. So if, say, Nick Deslauriers gets injured, then the Flyers will be able to recall Jett or Nikita Grabenkin or someone else from the Phantoms with an emergency recall. And then as soon as that NHL player is back and healthy, then they would have to be forced back down to the AHL. But as we said, it would kind of lock the Flyers in. If they were to bring Jett up right away, that's the 4. That's right away. That's set. And then without using that emergency recall in case of an injury, you wouldn't be able to get a late season NHL look at Grabenkin or possibly just anyone else in the Phantoms that are kind of interesting. Maybe a late season rewarding Zade Wisdom for having a decent Phantom season, and Ethan Sampson on the blue line. Someone of note, Helge Grans or anything like that. Just AHL guys that they might want to see how they react to this late season NHL action. Of course, with it being locked in and with the possibility of his first year of his entry-level contract being burned. We just can't really see this happening. We can't see Jett just being in the NHL right away. It just doesn't make sense. That doesn't, from a team building point of view. And what do we really get out of having Luchanko on this team right now that is spiraling down the standings and is just horrible to watch right now? So that brings us to the most likely situation. And we've already seen reports from Kevin Kurz and Bill Meltzer that Jett is certainly going to be on his way to the Phantoms. And that just makes sense from our point of view. It's seeing what he can do from that next level up in the OHL with better teammates, with a higher quality of competition, but with a raised standard of teammates and competition and just general play and speed of the game, that it'd be really interesting to see. And since he did look out of place in the 4 games in the NHL earlier this season, that if he takes a step below that league, obviously, it's going to be really interesting to see what he can do. And the Phantoms games, they have 9 more, are much more meaningful. They are in the middle of the playoffs. They're in the standings position that they would make the playoffs and then hopefully get a little bit further. But this team needs Jett more than the Flyers would need any amount of uptick in offense. Jett could really take over just the first line center role because Jacob Gauthier is there right now. And no offense to Jacob, I'm sorry, but Luchanko might be a little bit of a higher priority. And then suddenly you're playing with Grebenkin, you're playing with Zayde Wisdom, you're playing with Alexei Gendron, you're playing with higher paced players that he would play with than in Guelph, or more powerful players in Zayde's case. And especially considering that Luchanko is not able to play in the AHL next season. He's still too young. He'll be 19 and unable to play in that league, and it'll have to be OHL or NHL for Jett next season. That seeing him at that level, it would be a little bit of a confirmation for the Flyers front office to be able to see and look and be like, he's good in the AHL, so he can certainly prove it, and with a solid summer of development, take that next step and be a NHL mainstay. Or if he's caught off to speed, if he's not able to do the same things that he was able to do in the OHL with the Phantoms, then the Flyers can take a step back and understand maybe it's better that he stays in the OHL, captains that Guelph team, and then gets moved and traded, maybe not right at the deadline, but hopefully early on, to a better team in a better situation. And he finishes junior career strong, and then he can really hit the ground running at 20 years old in 2026. But let's think of a hypothetical situation where we don't have to pick one or the other for Jett. We could really meld these two options and think of something that would happen. Let's say he starts with the Phantoms. He gets playing, he gets moving and grooving. He's with Grebenkin, the chemistry's there. He's scoring multiple points a game, hypothetically. He's showing that he's too good, or at the same level, at least, for as a top prospect in the AHL. Then, Friday, April 5th hits in Montreal against the Habs, and that is the game where the Flyers have just 5 more games remaining in the season. So, hypothetically, Jett could go down to the Phantoms, play well enough there, then that he gets the call up to play in the last 5 games. No entry-level contract year is burned. The Flyers are able to have him cheap for 3 years and not worry about his next contract. And then after the final 5 games of the Flyers season, he's able to return to the Phantoms, play a couple games because they still have regular season games after the Flyers regular season ends. And kind of everybody wins a little bit. Just gets more NHL games, hits that limit with not a contract year burned, and he's able to get a little bit of AHL action under his belt. Going back and forth between the leagues is not ideal, of course. Different coaches, staffs, different practices. At least they're kind of close location-wise. But it is a possible situation that could play out if the height of production and if he's able to play well enough in the AHL to begin with, that is something that could possibly happen. And again, it would be the Flyers locking in with him as the recall and not Grebenkin. Depends on who they want to see more in the NHL to finish this season off. But with Jett, it's kind of exciting to see your first round pick from last year kind of play in the NHL and give something that fans look forward to as this season that has not been fun closes out. But that's really it. It's just those options are on the table for Jett. No matter what, we're going to be watching wherever he plays because that Guelph Storm team, as we have seen in past videos, was not the most exciting team to watch. They didn't have a lot of scoring chances. It was primarily Luchanko kind of doing everything, a whole lot of everything. But now we get to see him in a different environment, and we're going to be really tuned in to what he does from here. Again, guys, like and subscribe to this video. Please get it to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the season. That's our goal. You're helping us. You're helping independent Flyers coverage. BSH forever.